How do you control people who no longer believe? You create something to fear. Offensive, a podcast that may or may not be giving birth to the Antichrist. I'm Bill.
I'm Jess.
And today we are discussing a prequel to one of the great Catholic horror franchises.
This is a podcast about the films condemned or considered morally offensive by the Catholic Church.
We both grew up Catholic and now we're not for reasons. But we are still fascinated by the religion that raised us. The films we cover are selected from the official film review lists of the Legion of Decency, Rest in Peace, and the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. I am a motion graphics designer, editor, and DJ.
And I am an instructional designer with a PhD in film and television studies.
And together, we are on a journey to watch every film condemned or considered morally offensive. Jess, welcome back for episode 2 on the First Omen.
Still happy to be here.
Still happy to be here.
I've been here the whole time.
It's true. It's
been a week.
You've been on here with Pocky, hanging out. Pocky's one of our 3 dogs. He's just chilling. You guys are chilling. We are back once again, of course, with our wonderful guest, Tif Robinette. Tif, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to keep talking.
Well, let's dive right into it and get moving, because I'm sure people don't want to hear me talk about disco again.
You got it out.
I got my Look, I get one disco rant for every few episodes, okay? It's just how it goes. So let's look at what happens in Act 2 and 3 of this movie, and we will discuss. As Margaret's investigation deepens in Rome, she teams up with Father Brennan to uncover the truth behind the orphanage's records. They discover that Carlita is not the Antichrist, but rather a candidate to be the mother of the Scianna bloodline. Margaret realizes the church has been conducting horrific breeding experiments to produce a vessel for the devil. The horror intensifies at the convent when Margaret discovers a hidden floor containing medical equipment and the mark on several of the victims. By the end of the act, after a series of terrifying biological revelations and the death of her peer, Margaret makes the harrowing discovery that she is the true target of the conspiracy, leading to a violent confrontation with church hierarchy. In the final act, Margaret discovers the horrific truth. She was bred by the church specifically to mother the Antichrist, and bears the mark of the devil. Within the Roman orphanage, the conspirators, led by Cardinal Lawrence, reveal their plan to use the fear of the demonic to force the secular world back into religious subservience. The ritual culminates in a graphic, supernatural scene where Margaret gives birth to twins, a boy and a girl. The church seizes the boy to become the Antichrist, attempting to kill Margaret and the female infant to cover their tracks. However, Margaret survives the assault and escapes into hiding with her daughter and Carlita. The film concludes years later with the trio living in seclusion as Father Brennan warns them that the church and the now-grown Antichrist, Margaret's son Damien, are searching for them, setting the stage for the original 1976 film. Now, a quick question I have off the bat. This takes place in 76, right?
This takes place in 71.
Or 71. But the ending is taking place in 76. Or it's taking place like slightly later. Okay.
But yeah, because it doesn't show us how old the daughter is, right? We see Carlita looks a little bit older.
Okay.
Well, I think the daughter is just supposed to be as old as Damien is when his parents are dead and he's now with like the president of the United States. He's like adopted by them.
Oh, so this is after. Okay.
Yeah, that makes more sense. All the way forward. I know we're going into like Act 3 when we haven't.
That makes more sense, but yeah, I just was curious about timeline.
It was like a 5-year leap forward.
Obviously, church conspiracies are nothing new, but what do you think is unique about this approach to talking about, because the original Omen, it's a little more vague. This is very specific about the methods and sort of the files of dead children. What is she tapping into here?
To start with, there's this continuous like stress within the story of women's bodily autonomy. And so you're beginning with this, we're going back to, the flashbacks to the birth, to, I guess, presumably her birth, kind of mirroring what happens to her later.
Right.
And, same, like black shroud over her face, like the exact same setup as, like, I guess, presumably her mother, who is also a nun, was impregnated.
Right, the opening scene, right?
In the opening scene, yeah. Or I guess it's the prologue, basically. We have this failed eugenics experiment of trying to mate this, like, jackal demon ? I don't know. There is no jackal in Revelation. I looked it up because I was like, I like know Revelation like backwards and forwards, and I was like, I am pretty sure there's no jackal in it at all. And I looked, and I was correct.
It's interesting. There's some apocalypse lore that comes from the Omen movies. Like 666, it is technically, theoretically from the Bible, depending on the translation.
Right.
But we found out, I didn't realize, like, it wasn't a popular notion or something most people thought about before the original Omen came out.
Yeah.
After that is really when you see people using 666, like graffitiing on things and talking about the mark of the beast. Before that, people didn't really talk about it. And I do think it kind of coincides with like Hal Lindsey's books and like some of the other more paranoid conspiratorial apocalypse books that come out around this time. So it's in the ether, but before the late 70s, people weren't talking about 666.
No, not as much.
Not as much.
Can I ask, because you two know more than me, I also got confused because when I was trying to look this up, it said that different translations and stuff of the Bible, that more contemporary translations say jackals, whereas earlier ones would have said dragons, and there's conflations between dragons and jackals.
It's the serpent thing. Garden of Eden, right? Like, people think the serpent is always a snake, and there's that snake imagery that's been around forever, but really it was more likely something like a lizard mixed with a little bit of dragon energy.
It originally had legs and then like lost legs.
Like Tiff was doing, maybe I think I looked at it and it was like the Hebrew word tanum would always be translated dragons, but then I read this thing saying like modern scholars, like consulting with zoologists, actually correct it to jackal.
I love that that's something they did. Like, someone got paid to do that, or didn't. Maybe they didn't, because
hey, I'd like to think that some obscure dissertation out there, somebody had their moment to shine.
I'm sure. Well, even 666, there's disagreement about the actual number of the beast,
right.
and even then, like, Catholics are very not into the apocalypse stuff unless you're charismatic. Fair. Most Catholics don't even engage with revelations like a lot of the fundy Protestants do.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's more of a symbolic work. It's meant, a lot of people say it symbolizes like the early experiences of the Christians who were being persecuted by Rome, and Rome is kind of like the force in Revelations that it's all reacting to, and it's about like how the church will survive that era. Other people, I've heard Scott Hahn talk about it as kind of an allegory for the mass. I mean, there's so many different takes on Revelation, but most Catholics don't get into the apocalypse shit.
Oh, and in the same interview, it's conflation of a sea monster serpent.
There you go. Do you remember Cecil, the C6 sea serpent?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought of immediately.
Okay, this is something, I'm going back to good old John's review.
Thank God.
There is like garbled theology in this. Like that is true.
He's not
like,
wrong.
He's not wrong about that. And even to a point, like all right, so this was a difficulty for me. Like, I had a lot of trouble getting past this plot point that is supposed to explain everything, like why the eugenics, why this whole project, like why is this happening? And it's like to bring like the lost back to the church. Okay, I kind of understand that. But then they layer on top of this that like we're going to be able to control the Antichrist.
Right.
And I'm like, says who?
I thought about this a lot and what it's saying, and remove like the muddled theology of it all. It's actually a really interesting as a piece of symbolism about the sort of conservative Catholics who have made a deal with the devil to bring Trump to power. I think of, people like Cardinal Dolan, Bishop Barron, and hear me out on this. So charismatic Catholics, a lot of the traditionalists, a lot of very conservative Catholics are terrified of secularism. Bishop Barron constantly is talking about secularism and like the threat of secularism. But what is secularism but just like respecting that, like, hey, not everybody's fucking Catholic, not a big fucking deal. But some people, obviously make it a thing. And so I love when Brandon in this movie says secularism, they're worried about secularism. I was like, yeah, I got so excited. I was like, this movie gets it. Because before Donald Trump, and I'm sorry, I don't like talking about politics on here, but it's so a part of what we live in right now, and it's such a part of my story of leaving the church, so I have to talk about it.
I feel like I break that every week I'm on.
Cisco and I did too. We did an episode early on where we really went hard, and after that I was like, let's not go too far down that rabbit hole where it doesn't apply to the movie. When Trump ran the first time and the second time, there were quite a few priests using their platform and their spiritual position as a spiritual leader. I mean, these guys represent God on earth, right? Shaming people publicly online and in the pews and in their newsletters saying, you can't be Catholic and vote Democrat.
Right.
Now, this is an election where a man who is very clearly an authoritarian, a man whose message is very clearly not Christian, using Christianity, holding a Bible upside down, pretending to be a Christian.
It was a golden Bible with his name on it.
No, I'm talking about the one when he tear gassed the nuns. He tear gassed a bunch of Catholic nuns so you could have a photo op with the upside down Bible.
Yeah, that was before he got the crime down in DC, Bill.
Again, I don't believe in the Antichrist. I don't believe in the apocalypse, but holy shit, has nothing been more clear to me about what Revelation is saying in a lot of ways and what a lot of apocalypse literature is saying, in that like there is a scenario where there are people of the faith who will be so fooled by a person thinking they're a good Christian that they will literally support the devil or the Antichrist. And I think that's what this is like saying. I mean, I have quotes here, there were so many priests, Father James Altman, Father Frank Pavone, who thank God is laicized now, Joseph Strickland, Thomas Paprocki, Charles Chaput, and there are many more who shamed Catholics into voting for Donald Trump. Now, I don't have numbers on how many people were affected by their words or voted for that, but vocally, there were many people who were echoing those sentiments.
Can we also say particularly geared at men, like white male Catholics?
Indeed. And when I see this group of the, quote, other church, keep in mind what I said in the first episode about that, there are Catholics who are so afraid of secularism, of gay people, of DEI practices, of like teaching actual civil rights history, black history in school. There are Catholics who are so afraid of that and so afraid of letting women control their own health care that they would literally help create and bring about the rise of the Antichrist to bring people back to the church. I believe that.
Again, Eric Kripke, precog, watch
Yep.
The Boys if this interests you. But I also think there's this like weird frailty of thinking in that this like over misplaced confidence that they can fix it. Like, oh, well, we'll create the Antichrist, but then we'll just, right, like we'll have an exorcism and fix him. No big deal.
Well, but that's the thing about Trump is if you compare this to Trump.
Well, I'm saying it fits perfect.
It fits
right?
perfectly because when he posted that photo of himself as the Pope, he wasn't being anti-Catholic.
Right. Or go up to a Catholic who, again, there's some great, like The Daily Show. They're going around showing people pictures. And again, they're making excuses of like, well, he was just joking or it's just satire. And can't we have some fun about it? And well, I don't agree with it, but I agree with this, this, and this. But also this idea of like now the new narrative is, well, he's just the face of it, though, right? It's the people he surrounds himself with are smart.
Right,
and it's the he's not the one really making these decisions and stuff. So what he does now doesn't matter. It's the policies are horrific. But it's less about him and it's more, we'll focus more on the people surrounding him, right?
We've got Opus Dei people in the White House now executing Project 2025, right?
Yep.
So that's fine. And I think it's this idea of like, we can control him. And that's, to me, I don't know if this movie's necessarily saying that, but I totally believe that a group of Catholics, there would be a group of priests and bishops who would believe they could control the Antichrist to bring people back to the church. I buy that after what we've lived through the last decade.
I buy that they would do it, but like there's a film after this that like they're going to get destroyed.
I hope so.
Basically, like,
yeah.
But I mean, like you're bringing up something interesting in terms of like the reading of like media based on the type of like religious upbringing that that like, we spent the first at least like 20 years, maybe plus, of our lives in, and how like even under the umbrella of Christianity, there can be all of these like vastly different doctrine about
Right.
like the end times in general and like doomsday. Basically, we're talking about doomsday.
Right.
We're talking about like the Antichrist, like rising up. We're talking about like the end of the world. But then we're also talking about the return of Christ and like the tribulation, but then the like 1,000 years of him reigning on earth with like everybody who believes in him, whoever's like the true Christian church.
Thank God I was educated by priests who were just like, we don't know. It's symbolic.
Well, yeah, I mean,
like
like dispensationalism and even the idea of like the rapture itself, it like John Darby in like 1820, he like fell off of a pony, hit his head, had a traumatic brain injury, had visions, and imagined that the rapture, like Jesus coming down through the clouds, was like a thing and was a part of Revelation, which is like not,
No.
it's very much arguable that it was just traumatic brain injury and very, very much like not supported by scripture. So like the idea from like a Protestant side of like bringing in the Antichrist actually is actively ushering in Christ's return. So if you can set up the Antichrist, you're actually ushering in the like actual end of days, which is like heaven on earth, which is why so many are like hell-bent, literally. On the apocalypse happening and soon.
In our lifetime.
Like,
yep.
They're praying for it any day, which I think is just kind of wild from like a humanities point of view.
Especially because you figure, like, if you actually believe in that, okay, so you die. If you were a good person, Christ's coming, you're supposed to rise out of your grave, according to like the legend, when he comes back. So like, why do you need it to happen now? And also, isn't it a sin to want it to be on your time and not God's time? Because isn't the whole thing that you know neither the day nor the hour? That seems presumptive and kind of blasphemous, honestly, to me. But what do I know? I'm a cradle Catholic, so you know.
I mean, interesting, like the idea of them ushering in the Antichrist, which like it's like a domino effect, right? Like you have the Antichrist, and then like Christ comes back and like kicks his ass. That's basically like how it goes. So, but they're doing it through this like eugenics project, which is like even stranger.
Well, and the files of children who had not made it really, for me personally, coming from a Catholic background, I was thinking about all of the residential schools in Canada that were run by Catholic nuns and priests, and also the Irish Magdalene laundries where, in the 70s, 2 kids fell in a septic tank and found baby skeletons in the poop. And then they unearthed like 800 babies.
And the forced sterilizations of women.
Yep. Yeah, and it's funny because, like, growing up, Catholics often compare. I heard things like, most offensively. This is not me saying this, by the way, because this is really going to offend some people. But I heard things like abortion compared to the Holocaust, for example, and a lot of times they would compare abortion doctors, doctors who perform the procedure that we call abortion. These are just regular doctors. Referred to them as like Mengele, compared to them to like the Nazi experiments. And I'm sitting here going like, what do you think the nuns were doing in the hospitals in like Ireland? Like we are guilty of way worse than what some of these abortion doctors have done, because at least that's all, it's consensual. It's like there's like medical ethics applied to the process. What the nuns were doing was gross and like disturbing when you read about it.
And I grew up I have a Catholic mother and a Lutheran father, so I'm very split on this. I was raised Catholic, though. We've talked about that before. That was an agreement my mother made my dad agree to, was the children would be raised Catholic.
Typical.
But, right? And my dad's like, whatever. But, like, talking to my dad about this movie and stuff, right, from, like, a historic perspective to the Lutherans, the papacy, the office of the papacy is Satan, right? That's the Antichrist.
Yeah. See, this is why...
Not the Pope himself, but the office of it.
I love it.
Like this film, like through a Lutheran lens, would very much be like the radical church faction, the cultists at the end that are standing around, the old guard, right? Would be like the Lutheran nightmare. Like that group would be the like living embodiment of the Antichrist. This idea that an institution could become so obsessed with its own like power grabs that it would do something like this, which I think is really interesting and kind of like very in line with my dad's. My dad does not belong to a congregation or attend church, but definitely very
Well, that was
like with his view of Catholics.
I went on A24 on the Rocks recently and talked about the top Catholic films of all time. And something I had in my back pocket was if anybody brought up The Omen, I was going to make the argument that it wasn't really actually a Catholic movie because the apocalypse stuff is so Protestant. And the film basically plays into like Protestant ideas about the Catholic Church and the Pope.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Catholics are the bad guys. In this newer prequel, we have like the good church and the bad church. So the good church is like the wider church, and then you have this little conspiracy within it. But then we do have this figure. It's okay. So it's this like creepy old man, but he's in. But he's in some sort of like robes or garbs. I'm not sure if he's supposed to be like the Antichrist version of like another pope, like an evil pope, or
are you talking about like Cardinal Lawrence?
Do you know what I'm talking about? In the original, The Omen, there's this line that I think like applies even better to the prequel, which is for everything holy there is unholy. So it's sort of this like good and evil, the struggle for good and evil, but then having this basically like false church, like this false religion within the good religion. Yeah. To me, seems less like a Protestant view as like the original Omen, which is vilifying the Catholic Church. The only person that seems like he has some good left in him is Brannon, who is like atoning for his sins, basically.
The whole like scene from like a setting perspective of this like hidden wing and everything is like there's these like abandoned kind of like biologic experiments. There's jars. There's this weird juxtaposition between these like cold but kind of like contemporary modern medical instruments, but then these like decaying old walls from this cordoned off section, right?
Can I ask something too? How did we clear up how she becomes pregnant? Was that the night her and Luz went out?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I figured. Okay.
And that's what like that whole like the scene Tif talked about in the first episode of the spider on her face after wearing the purple, all of that. Yes.
I would love to talk about her water break scene.
Which I think is after the like birth scenes is one of the most and her guttural sounds.
And I listened to some interviews today with her about the director about this, and I called it. I knew what the influence was right away.
Is that true?
Do you know just the influence? Possession?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's inspired by Isabella Adjani's famous milk carton scene in Possession. And I was immediately like, oh, we're doing a Possession. This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty freaky too, because like she shows like in like a second, like the belly. I was like, that's terrifying.
Well, it's like her water breaks first,
and then
she starts growing, then bleeding.
I mean, this is like alien birthing process. I mean, it doesn't play by the rules.
And
so
she's like,
fine.
Again, going back and kind of highlighting that hallucinated birth scene with Luz, where she's kind of possessed first. She's just making these like guttural noises and twitching, and
it's very uncomfortable. Like the camera lingers too long.
Yes.
Like at least for me, for my comfort, it's like I don't know how to exactly explain it, but it was too much. And I don't say that in a bad way, like it should have been shorter. Yeah. I'm saying that in like it really viscerally made me uncomfortable, like sitting there and like actively watching it, being like, when will this end? But also like I'm here for like whatever's gonna happen.
In other films there would have been a cutaway, right? Somewhere there, and it just refused to. And it again goes back to like we were talking about in Act 1, where we have this steady cam work. Act 2, as Margaret's starting to really fall apart, and starting to unravel. She gets the files, she's going through. We're seeing kind of things from her perspective, the way she's just like rattling through these images that are hearkening back to the original film, the 76 film, right? Again, these kind of like entwined images from the mural.
But a really cool way to show it in a way that doesn't feel like on the nose or like fan service, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so in the second act, as this is happening and her like psyche is devolving, we're having more handheld camera work. It's a little bit shakier. There's a lot of close-ups of Margaret to kind of show this development like on her face. And then when we get to the third act, and this scene in particular, the camera gets really steady again, right? And we have it approaches her in this really slow, creeping, stalking way. Like very deliberate, like spying.
Yeah. Kind of like forcing our gaze, like forcing us to watch something for longer than we want to, more intensely than we want to.
Yeah.
When there's not anything else going on in the scene except for this one person's movements.
Right. Like
that's what we have to focus on.
The other people in the car are deceased. We have another car with Priest pulling up, but that takes us away for a split second. And it's right the way the camera, like very slowly, like we're confronted with like her rupture and like her water breaking. We see it pooling on the pavement. The lighting from like the street lights is highlighting everything that's happening as well. The pavement is wet and kind of reflecting back like what's happening too.
This is something that's really well done in this movie. I think, you know, people try to take a handheld approach sometimes and push it throughout a whole movie, or they try to do everything on sticks and dollies. And I think this movie, it really just intelligently uses handheld and Steadicam where it makes the most sense and has the most impact, especially going handheld. I'm pretty sure she's handheld in that scene, the water break scene, and it really adds to the tension because you're just, you feel it. You feel the movement.
It's close up and then it switches quickly to like Steadicam when they get into the building and like as we're navigating the building, right? We're going through like this like omniscient present, right? Yeah. To like get there and get into the main room. Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah. And this is a freaky room.
It is. It's a very like dungeon-esque, very old ruins.
As far as
I love that like, they have capes like with hoods.
It's because occult. Like
it is. Yeah. There's an altar in the middle of the room. It's
and this can get goofy real quick. That's the other thing. Like people in capes and hoods. I mean, it's been parodied in What We Do in the Shadows, in Zoolander 2. I mean, you know, Hot Fuzz. So it's a trope.
But there's no weird chants or anything. Right? Like that's the most upsetting part is it's silence and expressionless faces of these people that are supposed to be moral authorities.
People you thought you trusted.
Right. As this woman cries out desperate for help. Again, like Tif talks about mirroring her mother's cries at the beginning of the film.
I think that's what's really cool about this film is she does a great job of humanizing the nuns and the priests early on and making them likable and making, you know, I'm not suspecting any of them really until things start to go awry. And to see those people in those hoods just dispassionately taking part in this is wild.
It's unflinching, right? And Bill Nighy just like, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And then we have a C-section, which is like
brutal.
Mostly basically, because she's like, I'm in pain. Like, you shouldn't be able to be feeling anything.
Right.
She's just getting a shot, like in her arm, I believe. So we have this like, so we almost have like the inversion of like what would be a natural birth, like quote unquote, like, you know, a vaginal birth is considered like natural in some circles. So we have this like different sort of birth. We don't have him coming out, and I think that's just to protect. They have like more consideration for the baby than the mother, obviously.
Well, and not even the daughter. They don't care about the life, which is interesting.
And
right. You know? But then we have this, you know, this is one of the great twists we have that's set up. Is like we have the doubling of the sisters. So we have like her and Carlita, who are biological siblings, you know, in some sense. And then we have this like twinning as well. So we have these like little twists that are actually unexpected. Because on my second watch, like I watched this back when it was in theaters, got very confused about it and what was the other one called? With Sydney Sweeney.
Oh, Immaculate.
I watched them within like a month of each other. Crazy that they came out at the same time because, I don't know about that timing. But I had forgotten that there were going to be twins, and I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that twist in the end, and I really liked it.
I did too. Because then you're like, wait, if they need to have a boy, but a girl comes out, you have a girl.
It's a happy ending. So it's a happier ending for her because the baby has to be taken away from her. Like, she's not going to get Damien. This is not a Rosemary's Baby situation where she can raise the Antichrist.
When Margaret's born, was Margaret always only intended to be the vessel, or was her mom a potential vessel and Margaret could have been the Antichrist, but she was born a girl?
They were all girls. There were only two viable or surviving children of the jackal, and it was her and Carlita. All the rest were born had deformities. Basically.
Right, okay. And so then if Margaret would not have had a son, Carlita would have been the next.
Yeah. And then so they were all women aren't really being able to carry a male child to term for whatever reason.
Right.
That's why the girls survived, because canonically, I guess the Antichrist has to be a man because it has to be the opposite of Jesus. So now we're doing incest. So maybe the child of the devil can also carry. So the eugenics are getting even narrower of
right, because who said, was it Bill Nighy's character that said something about mating with I thought there was something said about mating with the sister.
I do wonder if they are setting up a in-between sequel sequel to the prequel that will go between this and the original Omen, because it seems like they set that up.
One of them mentions they want the bloodline to remain pure, and that if the sister survives or something, they can breed. Because I don't remember who makes that comment, but it is made.
Yeah.
It doesn't say who says that.
Well, the father at the end says she's going to be important, something to that effect, which is sort of the last kind of statement we're left with in the end. The daughter is going to be Damien's twin sister is going to be important.
It's going to be important.
Oh, it's Father Brennan who says it.
Yeah, it's Father Brennan. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, if Damien's alive,
he called it a perpetual lineage.
If Damien's alive, I'm wondering if Damien will show up in the next movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he says that the female twin was created to be the perfect mate for Damien, and that by breeding the two together, they will perfect and stabilize the demonic bloodline.
This sounds like the plot of Cat People, the sequel to Cat People, the Paul Schrader. You know what I'm talking about?
That's a yes.
Okay,
yes,
thank
I do.
you. I'm glad somebody knows what I'm talking about, because I didn't want to be random about that. But
I did also I wanted to just read this quick quote from Stevenson from an interview about the birth scenes. Again, kind of the O'Keeffe thing. But so I grew up admiring Georgia O'Keeffe paintings and really wanted this image to the image of the birth to be really beautiful. But I started to realize during the filming process, when we were creating this moment, it wasn't the body that was what we wanted to be scary. That wasn't the point of the scene. It was what was being done to the body. That was the point.
Like I said, that's what really freaks me out about the pregnancy scene, other than the claw, is just the loss of bodily autonomy, the being held down, after having experienced assault or abuse. That's terrifying to anyone, really. I mean, I hope it would be at least to anyone. There's some psychos out there, but
Well, and being on the way to get help, they have in the middle of the night in Rome in the 70s, they have a doctor who's willing to perform a emergency abortion. And she's being carried there by, at least one of the guys that is a member of the cloth, and the other, and Brennan, actually really isn't a father anymore. He was excommunicated, he says, but he's all for this. So, there's just kind of a more nuanced, interesting conversation about abortion again, and women's bodily autonomy, which, is the exact same reason why in the original Omen, why the couple has the Antichrist child to begin with.
They lose a baby during childbirth, and then they swap the babies.
He swaps the baby. He is
Right.
like, my wife wouldn't want a child that isn't her own,
Right.
but I'm going to just slip it in anyway. We're not going to tell her. And then he's against her getting an abortion later,
Right.
for like very strange reasons. So like this theme of choice and women's
And deceptive
popular
men.
body, yeah, it's being subverted by
Yeah.
men like over and over again in both. And the year of our Lord 2026.
It's so relevant in so many ways, this movie and the original even still, which is, it was wild to watch the original almost a year and a half now when we started this podcast. It was our first episode. And to see how like the abortion issue was still so relevant and seems almost shocking for when the film was made.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking in my head is Dr. Oz would say these women are underbabied.
Oh my God.
Has he said that?
That's right. Tiff
Flames,
knows.
flames.
Thank you.
I can only
the
take
new
so much.
epidemic, Bill, let me tell you, the new epidemic, the scourge of America, is that women, particularly women like me, childless in their 30s, are underbabied and need to be incentivized to start popping out babies and stay at home.
Look, I've been a journalist. I try to do a fair job on this show, but we're also kind of funny and honest and blunt.
Oprah owes us apologies and explanations.
Oprah owes me like a new car, at least, if nothing else.
You get a car, you get a car. But yeah, so that's the new thing. And I just kept thinking about this because I ordered a Underbabied and Proud t-shirt
Oh my God.
the other day. And so as I'm watching this, I just keep thinking about like, oh my God, what would their comment be is also like, well, if we're going to make some 12-year-old in the South carry their dad's baby to full term, you're going to carry the Antichrist. Like, nope, we're not stopping that.
Again, I love that the priests jump right to let's get you an abortion.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
The church has made it clear the trolley problem doesn't apply to abortion. There is no loophole. And you're just jumping straight to killing it because it's the Antichrist? No, maybe the Antichrist will grow up to be Albert Einstein, guys. Come on.
That's like, and again,
he's also like, I know a guy. Like, how do you know that guy?
Like, how do you know that guy?
Immediately with Father Brennan, I want to be like, is he doing this because he actually does care about her, because he thinks this is the right thing to do? Or is this all also about optics of like, oh, this really isn't going to look good for the Catholic Church if this gets out?
Isn't he like a renegade priest in the original Omen movie?
Yeah.
Because he's like Leia-sized.
He's a cool priest.
But he's still acting like as a priest. Like his little room is very much like still set up. Like his bed is like 2 feet wide.
This movie features people who the church enables them to do heinous things with the idea that they are doing the best thing in the world they could possibly do by putting God first, right? We need to build the kingdom of God. We need to evangelize and get more people to church. How do we do that? We bring about the Antichrist. We use fear. And I think this is a lot of time. This is also a critique of fear-based Catholicism, which you're using fear to get people in the pews. Just all the fear we had growing up about anything from sex to am I gay? If I'm gay, will my family disown me? I had tons of internalized homophobia over that because I'm not a normal guy. I don't play sports. I tried playing sports, didn't work out. Went into musical theater. Okay, like there were some questions I think some people had.
I mean, my husband was in the same boat.
Yeah, a lot of us were, but I had internalized homophobia because of it. Something I said to Kelly, I was talking to my wife the other day about my upbringing, and I made a joke about being hit with the belt, and she was like, wait, what? And I was like, like your dad, you're bad, they spank you with the belt. And she was like, Bill, that's not a healthy, healthy, that's not what happens to healthy people in healthy relationship, like healthy parenting. And I was like, but didn't everybody from our generation get hit with the belt? And she was like, you're a millennial. I don't think so. And I was like,
I feel like Catholics. Yeah,
Catholics. But not just that. I do think a lot of that came from Dr. Dobson, if I'm being completely honest, because we had Dobson in the house around the time that would have happened. I started thinking about the Dobson of it all. And my dad is a wonderful man, an emotional, empathetic, wonderful human being. R.I.P. My dad. Great guy. I was hit with the belt. I was hit with a paddle when I was bad. Not that hard, but I have vivid memories of him having to do this. It felt like it was expected of him.
It's even the language you're using of him having to do this.
I saw him cry a few times over it. He didn't want to do it. But Dr. Dobson and my parents decided as a couple, well, this is what we have to do to discipline our kids so they grow up to be good people. And that all comes from religion. That idea of discipline your kids, and as long as the religious figurehead, in this case, Dr. Dobson, is telling you to do that, you're going to fucking do it. And you feel like you're doing the right thing. You feel like you're raising godly children that way. And it's sad.
And not that you're the Antichrist, Bill, but I think that answers our question of like why the church in the film feels that they could birth the Antichrist and control him.
When you feel like what you're doing is the most Catholic thing ever, you will throw away all compassion, all empathy, and all reason if you are that type of Catholic.
And I think that's why I brought up that podcast too, because that is 100% what I feel like they're up against with their parents, is not just the conservative beliefs, but the Christian beliefs. And then now those two things have been so conflated that I feel like they are in this like battle that I just don't see how it's winnable.
No. Well, speaking of battles, that doesn't make any sense. What did we think of this movie?
I adore it. Like I said earlier to you before we started recording, this is definitely in one of my top, I'd say, 15 horror films, because it's just so like, especially from if we're looking like cinematography perspective, because I think it's just beautifully done. Yeah. And I think with regards to like from a prequel perspective, which I think Tif has touched on throughout as well, I think Stevenson just did such a phenomenal job as a female filmmaker, but just as a filmmaker and a human and an artist. Like, it was just beautiful and so thoughtful.
It really is. And again, this comes back to the thing I talk about a lot of how, like, let women make films.
Wuthering Heights.
Oh, let non-Nepo baby women make films.
Thank you.
Millionaires, maybe.
Yeah.
People with something to say.
Give people who don't have the resources to make a movie on their own with their family money, give those people money to make films. Be it, a group of people who aren't represented, a gender that isn't represented, somebody from a sexual orientation that's not heavily represented. Just give a more diverse group of people who maybe don't have access to funds the money to go make shit. Like, let's do that. Because the more I see from Indigenous filmmakers, from women, from Black filmmakers, from Latino filmmakers, from Arab filmmakers, et cetera, gay, lesbian, trans. And honestly, the more broadly you distribute funds, I feel like you'll find a bigger audience anyway.
Right.
I love this film. I thought it was great. It gets my imprimatur. I am curious, have you both seen all of the Omen movies at some point?
Yes.
Okay. Tif, I'm assuming this gets your imprimatur. You love this movie, or do you have, like, where are you at with it?
A little mixed. I have to say a little mixed. Do I think this film works as a standalone? Not so much. I think it works really well as a prequel. But I do not think it works well as a standalone. And I am of the sort of persuasion that films should be able to stand alone in their storytelling craft, because I'm always looking at things, I'm not looking at things so much as the director. I'm looking at, like, storytelling wise. I think it was a little bumpy. I think that by condensing the pregnancy down to like 5 seconds, like the entire body horror of the pregnancy, we don't get this like beautiful dread that we get, say, in Rosemary's Baby. So I do have some, like, I think this is as far as being beautifully shot, like, no notes, like, gorgeous. But in terms of storytelling, I think there was a little bit of bumpiness in what this film wanted to be. Does it want to be a body horror? Does it want to be a thriller, like a conspiracy thriller? I did enjoy it, like, absolutely. And watching them back to back, I would recommend to, like, anybody who is interested, who hasn't seen it. If anybody is listening to this who hasn't seen it, I would recommend, like, watching the original The Omen first, and then, like, watching this.
I want to get your rankings from both of you on these movies. Like, what's your top? What's your bottom?
Tiff's also so insightful that now she's making me want to change my answer, but also you can feel this way. No, because I think Tiff's a storyteller, right? Like, you are a storyteller. And I, like, my dissertation, everything was so focused on aesthetics. When I'm thinking, like, this is in my top top 15 films, I'm thinking just purely cinematography. My brain's not even thinking about the story because like I 100% agree with everything she's saying about the story.
I'm biased about vibes films. Like if a film is a vibe throughout, I will forgive a lot. And it's a problem I have as a storyteller where like I'm working on a music video for a friend right now. And the other day I'm like, I could just make cool images that kind of go together and it's a music video so no one cares.
But there's nothing wrong with like
yeah.
I wrote about Euphoria in my dissertation and this new season is hot garbage. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It has nothing that made it what it is. But the vibe is still there. The aesthetic is still there.
Right.
That makes me just be like, this is fucking dreamy. If I just tune out everything else.
Italian giallos. If they're a beautiful giallo with a good soundtrack, I'm like, I'm in.
And so I think it's valid. But I'm curious to hear Tif's ranking.
Yeah, let's hear Tif's ranking first. We're doing 1 through 4, the first remake, and then this prequel. I'm assuming the first Omen or the original Omen is like your top.
Out of all of the omens that have been made. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So like, what's your top one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, The Omen is the top one, and then I would have to say this is like number 2. Like,
I'm same, yeah.
It's also I just really enjoyed watching them, So, and the others I haven't rewatched those in a while. So, but I would have to say, like in terms of craft, like what I'm seeing on the screen, it has to be number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm the same way where I know my top 3 is like the Omen, the first Omen, and then the third one because the third one is goofy as hell and I love that.
But
I love the
Sam
assassin
Neill.
monks and I love Sam Neill is so hot in that movie.
It's true because that would be
I'm straight and I'm saying that, but I'm like Sam Neill.
Mine would also be the Omen, first Omen, and Omen 3 just for Sam Neill.
Yeah. And then after that, like the fourth one was basically a TV movie. The second one, it's living so in the shadow of the first one, and then you don't have like a Gregory Peck there. And then the remake, I just don't care. It's like, why remake The Omen?
What about, did we watch the very ill-fated single season of Damien?
I didn't even know that existed until right now.
It did, and
I watched one episode, and I actually put it out of my head that it even existed until you just mentioned it.
That's fair. It's just 10 episodes, but Bradley James, I do like Bradley James. Dreamboat, but also he was on this wonderful show that I loved called Merlin.
Was this the Sam Neill Merlin or something different?
No, this was a series that ran for 4 seasons on the BBC.
Of the mini-series. Did you see the mini-series with, Sam Neill and Martin Short?
But this was,
Okay. Well, anyway. Tif, thank you so much for joining us on the show. How can people find you and find out more about what you are up to?
They can follow me on my socials. It's all under Hollywood Junkyard, one word. And that would be, I use Threads and Instagram. I'm pretty active on Threads mostly. And then I have a Substack I update with writing on it sometimes. And that's under my name, Tif Robinette. And then, keep your eyes open for bookstores with books with my name on them coming next summer, but I can't really talk about it. I'm going to make a formal announcement in July where my work is going to end up, but I'm extremely excited.
That's fantastic.
Congrats.
And it's horror. So if you like horror, if you like reading horror, hopefully I'll have something for you all.
Excellent. Thank you for listening today. If you like this show and want to support us, please check out www.morallyoffensive.com and take a look at our merch store. We have a wide variety of stuff from playing cards to swimsuits to t-shirts to hats. We just added a new trucker hat that I'm very happy with for summer. It's got a nice ventilated back. It's optimized for bald men who don't have hair. Because I ordered our old an old hat we had up that I've now removed because it was so tall it made me look like a sea captain basically, and I didn't want that. So the new trucker hats are really nice. They're like a mid to low profile. Really happy with how those turned out. And again, it's morallyoffensive.com. Also, if you check the show notes, we have a link to buy us a coffee. If you just want to help us out a little bit, you can buy us a coffee. It'll just help us keep things running. We pay for hosting fees. We pay for Big Cartel to keep our merch up. So anything you do to help would be awesome. Please, if you want to follow us, we are Morally Offensive Pod on all socials, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube. And we appreciate you listening to us. If you love the show, like I said in the intro, please review, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. This is probably the easiest way to help us, and it pushes us up in the algorithm so more people can discover the show. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of Morally Offensive. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast in your podcast app of choice. This absolutely helps us get attention and raise awareness about the show. Join us next time when we will be wrapping up our Filthy Habits series as we get in the habit one last time with a revenge film from a profoundly complicated cradle Catholic director. We are going to be traveling back to the early 1980s in New York with Ms. 45. Thanks again for listening, and as always, go and sin no more.